This is a follow-on video from the one on my channel which shows you how to thread up a Bernina sewing machine. So this is how to use it. Your first job is to turn the machine on. This should make the light come on over the presser foot and the needle where you'll be sewing. Then you need to look at the tension dial. This indicates the tension between the top thread and the bottom thread coming up from the bobbin. Normally you would have matching colours, but I've put two contrasting ones in so you can see the cream one coming from the top and the red one coming from the bottom. Next is this big panel showing all the different kinds of stitches that you can do on this machine. You can see there's a series of red stitches and a series of green ones in the green section. So alterations can be made and the machine set up to do all kinds of fancy stitches. But we want an ordinary running stitch and a zigzag stitch right at the bottom there of the green section. So the lever goes down to the bottom. Next, here on the right, on this outside dial, we've got the stitch width. Goes right up to 5. If you were doing a zigzag and you wanted a wide zigzag, you might take the 5, but we want 0 for a straight stitch. The center of this switch changes the needle position. That will click it over to the left, and that one click it all the way over to the right. That can be useful when you're, for example, inserting a zip. We want it just right there in the center. This is for making buttonholes. What happens is that as you manually turn the dial round, the machine sets itself for each of the individual parts of making a buttonhole. Once again, because we're doing straight stitching, we just want it on 0. Next is the stitch length dial. And on my machine you alter it by turning it round. For ordinary straight stitching you want to have it on a 3.5. The other thing this one does is if you lift it up and hold it up, the machine will stitch backwards. That's useful for finishing off at the end of a line of stitching. Down here the outside dial shows you that choice between the red stitching and the green stitching that we looked at on the top of the machine. We're going for straight stitching, stick with the green. And finally these two, these control the feed dogs. These are these metal teeth that push the fabric through the machine. And right down there, if it's switched to that side, the feed dogs are up. Over to this side where there's a little symbol of darning, the feed dogs go down and the machine will just stitch on the spot. It won't, your fabric won't go through the machine. When you do any stitching, you need to make sure that your two threads are hanging down behind the presser foot. Sewing machines are designed to stitch through 2 layers of fabric. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to put the fabric underneath, reach round, put the presser foot lever down. When I put my foot down on the foot pedal, I want my heel to be on the ground and just my toes on the sloping bit of the pedal. Just going to do a few inches of a straight stitch. Then if I'm thinking about doing a zigzag, I'll go back up to the top here. Again, I'll change to say 5 and 5. That will be the widest zigzag possible. And that gives us a nice big zigzag. You can just see that appearing behind the presser foot. If I change it to 5 and 2, my stitches will be much closer together. So you can experiment with those. So going back to a straight stitch, 3.5 here, 0 here. When I get to the end of my fabric, if I lift this up and hold it up, the machine will back tack, and that will secure those stitches. I lift the presser foot up, make sure the needle is up out of the fabric, draw the fabric to one side and just snip my threads off on the cut on the side of the machine. And that's that piece of stitching.